Hello, welcome to Behind the Wall, your weekly look at China and its complex relationships with the world. I'm Stan Grant. Rather than providing a decisive victory for either side, as we now know, US election night was a nail-biter. Both candidates expressing confidence they were on the road to victory. Challenger Joe Biden ahead, closer to reaching the 270 Electoral College votes he'll need to secure the White House. But President Trump is already demanding recounts and filed lawsuits against the result in several states, even threatening to take the result to the Supreme Court. As the count continues, the rest of the world can do nothing but watch and wait to see what happens in the coming days. And that includes the world's other superpower, China. Qinduo Xu is a senior fellow at the Pangoal Institute, and he joins me now from Beijing. Qinduo, always good to see you.
Glad to see you.
I wanted to get your thoughts, just yours personally, on what you've observed with the US election.
Well, I think in general, the Chinese people, including myself, we would see that's, of course, the U.S. internal affair, and it's a bit surprising for a lot of people to see that there's no landsliding victory for Biden after 4 years of Trumpism and unilateralism. Of course, we know that in how the world see the U.S. over the past 4 years. And so that's, a bit surprising for a lot of people. And that's, in general, people see that's not good for the U.S. And then, even with a Biden administration, people would ask the question, how much legitimacy he and his administration will have. You basically be the president of half of America.
I'm just wondering on that question of being president of half America. Of course, China is not a democracy, but the US is. And I'm just wondering whether Chinese people look at America and they see democracy that is messy, that is divided, that is often confusing, and say, well, if that's democracy, I'm glad we don't have it.
And I think that's basically the general view. If you speak to people, in particular over the past 4 years, people would say, U.S., of course, is constantly exporting and advocating U.S.-style democracy to the rest of the world. That's in the past. And if you look at the U.S. handling of the pandemic, COVID-19, people compare that, what China has done to the pandemic and the U.S. So people would say, what's the benefit of the U.S. system? And they see the strength and advantage in the Chinese political system, and they see the rapid recovery of Chinese economy after controlling and the prevention of the spread of the virus. They do see the inherent advantage and the strength of the Chinese system. So people, in particular young people, are becoming more confident over their own country, over their own political system. They see now, it's not necessarily U.S. is the best, U.S. has the best system.
Qinduo, I wonder your reflections on the 4 years of the Trump presidency. It started out and Donald Trump was talking up his relationship with Xi Jinping, saying they had a great friendship. Of course, it ended in trade war, and both sides really suffering as a result of that, but an increased competition, contest. Do you feel that that relationship worsened, and is there a sense of a growing bitterness or enmity between China and the United States?
I think mostly when people would say, people call it like a U.S.-China trade war, U.S.-China decoupling, or U.S.-China tech war. But to be more accurate, it's the U.S. imposed a trade war on China. It's the U.S. which imposed a tech war on China. It's the U.S. which pursued a decoupling from China. So it's not really on equal terms, like somehow China is also pursuing a trade war with the U.S. No, China is responding to the U.S. tariffs, and China will take proper measures, it thinks proper measures, to protect its interests, to fight back, for example. So I think at the beginning of the term of the Trump administration, the two sides were okay. But the relationship really deteriorated after the start of early this year with the heat of the pandemic. I think President Trump felt very unhappy, with the pandemic, because that could cost his another term of the presidential term. So he has a lot of unhappiness or even hatred toward the Chinese side. Basically, he unleashed this hostility toward China and conducted by Secretary of State Pompeo and other senior officials, we can see the U.S. right now is basically pursuing a confrontation, a full confrontation with China on every aspect of this relationship. And there's zero cooperation between the two countries. This is dangerous because the two countries we know are superpowers. Whatever policy they pursue, that will be impactful on the rest of the world.
Qinduo, what about Joe Biden? If indeed there is a Biden presidency, Joe Biden himself has said that China has perfected the art of the steal, and he has called Xi Jinping a thug. He said that during the second debate. How do you see that relationship with the United States under a Biden presidency, and how would that language of calling Xi Jinping a thug be received in China?
I think people have different understanding. My understanding when I read that, when I saw that part of a video clip, he's really referring to other world leaders. Of course, it's kind of mixed. People have different interpretation of that. But I would say, you call other leaders as a thug is implied at least, and also it's bad for you to develop a relationship with the other side. I'm not sure that's a wise move in the first place. And secondly, you do see a changing of attitudes of Biden toward China. At the very beginning, he talked about, like China is eating our lunch. Give me a break. There's no such a thing. China is a developing country. The majority of the people are still living in poverty. That's his understanding. But I think he's sort of being kidnapped by the national sentiment in the United States, by the anti-China sentiment, being promoted in the media, in the think tanks, of course, foremost by the Trump administration. So Biden is toughening his attitudes toward China. But in general, I think people expect a Biden administration which would be not a reversal of the Trumpism of the past 4 years, but some of the policies or the atmosphere will be amended. For example, I think the two sides will start will talk to each other, or even a dialogue, or even negotiation, probably a negotiation about a trade relationship. Less talk of a trade war, for example. Less talk of a tech war, for example. And of course, the two countries probably will engage each other to prevent and manage the crisis over Taiwan, over South China Sea, those dangerous areas. I think, the two countries, if you follow Biden's basically foreign policy, he's pursuing multilateralism, very different from unilateralism by Trump. So if that's true, and if he practices multilateralism, you can see China and the U.S. can cooperate on climate change, on Iran nuclear issue, on the Korean Peninsula nuclear issue, on, say, transnational crimes, on even the pandemic, on the vaccination, or the distribution of the vaccine around the world. The two countries, they should work together for the benefits of the whole world, as well as the benefits of the two countries. I think the Biden administration will do that. In that sense, the relationship between the two countries will be stabilized to a certain degree. But overall, there will be more competition, more systematic pressure from the U.S. side on China. For example, Biden probably is better at bringing along U.S. allies to pressure China in terms of trade, in terms of economic structural reform inside China, or other issues. So by the same time, you do see more rational development of a relationship between the two countries.
Qinduo Xu, it's been a pleasure to talk to you on the program. Thank you again.
I'm happy to talk to you.